The Wyoming sun burned high, turning the plains into a sea of gold and dust. She was bleeding through the dirt. Her dress, nothing but a torn bedsheet, clung to her skin. Flies circled her wounds, and still she didn't cry. She just stared at the open land, breathing like each gasp might be her last. Elias Boone reined in his horse. He often rode far checking for lost cattle, farther than most men dared. At first, he thought she was dead. Then the sheep moved, and a faint whisper broke the silence. "Don't take me back, please." Her name was Rosie. Her lips were cracked, her skin blistered by the Wyoming sun. She looked barely 21. But what froze Elias wasn't her fear, it was her belly, round and heavy, 7, maybe 8 months along. He crouched near her. The air smelled of pine and blood. He'd seen his share of violence, raids, ambushes, gunfights, but nothing like this. The rope marks on her wrists, the bruises on her shoulders, the trembling hand clutching her stomach, they told her story before her lips could. When she finally spoke, her voice broke the quiet like glass. "My stepfather did this to me." Elias froze. Her eyes met his, wide, empty, truthful. No tears, just the raw honesty of someone the world had already thrown away. He looked down the road, empty. Just the long yellow stretch of Medicine Bow Valley, wind blowing through the fences, a hawk circling above. He had buried a daughter 12 years ago. She would have been about this girl's age. And now fate had dropped another lost soul on his porch, broken, carrying a child born of cruelty. He gave her water. Mercy's a small cup, but it can carry a life. She drank slow, like she'd forgotten how. When she tried to stand, her knees buckled. He caught her before she hit the ground. The child inside her kicked once, and that one small kick changed everything. He knew the rules of the frontier: you don't get involved. You survive, and move on. But as he looked at Rosie, he knew he wouldn't. That night, under the orange light of a dying sun, Elias carried her into his cabin. He laid her on his dead wife's bed and sat by the door, rifle across his knees. Outside, a coyote howled. Whatever had hurt her wasn't done yet. He whispered into the dark, "Who's coming for you, Rosie? What did you run from?" Morning smelled of smoke and sagebrush. Rosie woke slow, blinking like a child seeing daylight for the first time. Her hands clutched the blanket, unsure if she was safe or still dreaming. Elias sat by the stove, stirring coffee in a tin pot. He didn't speak, didn't have to. The cabin walls already held more words than either could say. When she tried to sit up, she winced. Her bruises had turned dark purple, almost black. He poured her a cup and handed it over. "Easy now," he said. "Got a long road if you plan on running again." She met his gaze, eyes red but calm. "I ain't running," she whispered. "I'm surviving." That hit him deep. He nodded like a man who'd said the same thing all his life. They ate in silence. Silence can heal, and it can haunt, all in the same breath. Just beans, bread, and the wind humming through the cracks in the wood. By noon, Elias saddled the horse. He told her they were heading east to find a midwife at Fort Laramie. He didn't ask about her stepfather. Some truths a man can't bear to hear. The ride through the plains was quiet. The sky stretched wide and blue, endless as forgiveness. Rosie held her belly, whispering under her breath, a prayer, maybe, or a promise. At dusk, they stopped near an old telegraph post. Elias built a small fire. Rosie smiled for the first time, soft, but real. "You don't have to do this," she said. He shrugged. "Maybe I do." For a while, the world seemed gentle again, firelight on her face, crickets singing low, the warmth of a night that didn't hurt. Elias thought of his daughter, gone 12 years now. He remembered her laugh, the way she fed the chickens barefoot in the yard. He hadn't let himself remember that sound in years. When Rosie fell asleep, Elias saw movement near the ridge, 2 riders, maybe 3, keeping their distance. He reached for his rifle. He knew what that meant. Somebody wasn't done looking for her. He kicked dirt over the fire, whispered, "If they want her, they'll have to go through me first." By the 3rd night, the wind picked up and the moon cut sharp through the clouds. Elias saw tracks in the sand, 3 horses, heavy riders, closing in. Rosie sensed it too. Her hands shook when she poured water from the canteen. That kind of fear doesn't come from strangers. It comes from someone who once called your name. The next morning, Elias turned north toward an old way station near the Platte River, higher ground, easier to see trouble coming. But by noon, he spotted smoke on the horizon. Too much for a campfire. They were close. He stopped his horse and looked at Rosie. "You trust me?" She nodded, though her eyes trembled. "Then do what I say. If we fail today, the prairie will remember our names in the dust." He hid her in the barn behind a stack of hay and handed her his old revolver. "You see anyone that ain't me, point and pull. Don't think. Just pull." Moments later, hooves thundered into the yard. 3 men. The one in front had a scar across his jaw. Rosie froze. That face haunted her nightmares, her stepfather. Elias didn't need an introduction. Men like that never came for justice. They came for ownership. "Afternoon," Elias said, voice steady. The scarred man grinned. "We're looking for a girl. Pretty thing, round belly. You seen her?" Elias spat in the dirt. "Can't say I have. And even if I did, I don't talk to men without names." "You don't want trouble, old man." "I've already had trouble," Elias said, hand hovering near his rifle. "Ask the wind what happened to the last man who came here uninvited." The silence was thick enough to cut. Then one rider reached for his gun. Elias didn't wait. His rifle cracked, and dust exploded near the man's boot. "You tell Jeb Caldwell," Elias said coldly, "the girl's gone. And if he wants her, he'll have to dig me up first." They turned and rode off, dust trailing like ghosts behind them. Rosie came out shaking, still clutching the revolver. Elias took it gently. "You ain't alone no more. Not while I'm breathing." He looked toward the sunset, jaw tight. This wasn't over. The night before the storm, Elias felt it in his bones. The air went too still, the kind that makes horses uneasy. He packed what little they had and told Rosie they were leaving before dawn. She didn't ask why. She just nodded and pulled her shawl close. By mid-morning, he saw dust behind them again. 3 riders, same men, coming fast. "Hold on," he said, spurring his horse toward the wooden bridge ahead. Thunder rolled across the plains as rain began to fall. Halfway across, Rosie screamed, her time was close. Elias jumped down and helped her off. "Stay low." He turned, rifle ready. Jeb Caldwell rode into view, hate burning in his eyes. "You can't hide her forever." Elias shouted back, "She ain't yours to hurt anymore." Gunfire split the air. Wood splintered. The smell of smoke and rain filled the bridge. Elias took cover, fired back. One shot grazed his arm, another dropped Jeb's horse. Jeb hit the mud, cursing. Rosie cried out, bent over in pain. Elias ran to her. "Breathe. You're almost through." Lightning flashed, turning night into day. Jeb raised his pistol, Elias fired. The shot hit Jeb's shoulder. He stumbled, slipped on the wet planks, and the river swallowed him whole. Elias caught Rosie as she collapsed. He carried her under a rocky ledge by the riverbank, away from the storm. He'd done this once before, long ago, when his wife gave birth during a blizzard. By dawn, the storm was gone. And a baby's cry rose over the river. Small. Alive. Elias smiled for the first time in years. If you'd stood beside him on that bridge, you'd know, some fights are worth everything. Weeks passed. The prairie turned green. Rosie's color came back. One morning, she laughed while feeding the chickens, and Elias stopped chopping wood just to listen. He hadn't realized how much silence lived in that house until it was gone. He built a cradle by hand. You don't have to do all this, Rosie said. Maybe I do, he answered. Maybe it's time I fix what the world broke. 2 days later, when she was strong enough, Elias rode to Fort Laramie and brought back a preacher. Under a golden sky, with no guests but the wind and the baby, Rosie Caldwell became Rosie Boone. Life on the plains stayed hard, but it grew gentler. Elias walked the corral with the baby in his arms. Rosie planted flowers by the porch. Laughter returned to the house. People in Medicine Bow whispered about the man who took in a broken girl and called her family. Some said he was a fool. Others, a saint. But the truth was simple, he was just a man who chose love over pride. Maybe we all carry a bridge inside us. And someday, we must decide who we'll let cross. Sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do, is care. Even when the world says not to.